In 40 years of running a coffee shop, I have witnessed 1,000 stories unfold. First dates where hands trembled over cappuccinos, breakups where tears fell into cold coffee, proposals that made the whole room hold its breath. I've seen love begin and love end, sometimes at the very same table, but I have never seen anything like what happened on that March morning when a man walked through my door with a baby girl in his arms, and Helen, my best friend who had been dead for 8 months, somehow still managed to bring them together. My name is Walter. I'm 68 years old, and this is not my story, but I'm the only one left who knows how it really began. 8 months before that March morning, 37,000 feet above the ground, a man named Nathan discovered what it truly meant to be alone. His daughter Emma was screaming, not the soft, tired cry of a baby who needs sleep. This was something else entirely, raw, desperate, the kind of sound that makes strangers stare and mothers look away. The kind of cry that seems to say, I need something you cannot give me. Nathan's hands were shaking as he tried the bottle again. Emma pushed it away, her tiny face red and scrunched with fury. He tried the pacifier. She spat it out like it had offended her. He tried rocking, bouncing, humming every lullaby his exhausted mind could remember. Nothing worked. Sweat dripped down his temple. His heart hammered against his ribs. Around him, the other passengers had stopped pretending not to notice. The woman in front kept sighing dramatically, each exhale a verdict. The elderly couple across the aisle exchanged looks that said everything words couldn't. A man in an expensive suit leaned forward. Can you control your kid? Nathan didn't answer. He couldn't, because the truth lodged in his throat like broken glass. I don't know how. I don't know how to do any of this. My wife was supposed to be here. My wife was supposed to know what to do. But his wife was dead. She had been dead for 8 months. And in all that time, Nathan had not figured out how to be both mother and father to a baby who seemed to sense, with that mysterious wisdom infants possess, that something essential was missing. He closed his eyes and pulled Emma closer to his chest. I'm sorry, baby, he whispered. Daddy's trying. In the delivery room, 8 months before the flight, there had been 37 seconds of perfect happiness. Nathan remembered every single one of them. Lily had held Emma for the first time, her face glowing with that particular light new mothers seemed to radiate. She looked up at Nathan, tears streaming down her cheeks, and laughed, actually laughed, with pure, uncomplicated joy. She's here, Lily whispered. Nathan, she's actually here. And she was. Their daughter. Their miracle. The baby they had tried 3 years to conceive. 37 seconds. That's how long the happiness lasted. Then the monitor started screaming. The doctor's smile vanished. Nurses rushed in, their movements suddenly urgent, their voices sharp with barely concealed panic. Someone was shouting about hemorrhaging, about blood loss, about needing more units now. Lily looked at Nathan. Her face had gone pale. But her eyes, her beautiful brown eyes, were calm. She was trying to tell him something, her lips moving, forming words he couldn't hear over the chaos. He leaned closer, straining to understand. But then they were pushing him out of the room, and the last thing he saw was Lily's hand reaching toward him, and then the door closed, and then everything ended. We did everything we could, the doctor said 2 hours later. Nathan stood in the hallway holding his newborn daughter, wearing his wife's blood on his shirt, and felt his entire world collapse into silence. On the plane, the flight attendant was 3 rows away now. The man in the suit was shaking his head in disgust. Emma's screams had reached a pitch that seemed to vibrate in Nathan's bones. Mom, he thought desperately, if you were still alive, you would know what to do. But his mother had died when he was 15. Cancer took her slowly, mercilessly, and now Lily was gone too. and Nathan was alone with a baby who needed something he didn't know how to give. Then she appeared. A woman from the row across the aisle stood up without a word. She had dark hair pulled back in a messy ponytail and tired eyes, the kind of tired that sleep cannot fix. There was a little girl curled up beside her, maybe 4 years old, fast asleep against the window, with a stuffed rabbit clutched to her chest. The woman didn't look at Nathan. She didn't ask if he needed help. She simply crossed the narrow aisle and held out her arms. "Give her to me." It wasn't a question. Nathan's first instinct was to refuse. Strangers don't just take other people's babies. That's not how the world works. But something in her voice, a quiet authority that seemed to come from a place deeper than politeness, made him hesitate. And in that moment of hesitation, the woman reached down and lifted Emma from his arms, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The cabin fell silent. The woman cradled Emma against her chest and began to hum, low, soft, a melody that sounded like something between a lullaby and a prayer. Her eyes were closed. Her lips moved as if she were having a conversation with the baby that no one else could hear. And then, impossibly, Emma stopped crying. Not gradually, not in fits and starts, all at once, as if someone had flipped a switch. She let out one last shuddering sob, then nestled her face into the woman's neck and went completely still. Nathan stared. His daughter's tiny fingers curled around a strand of dark hair, holding on as if she had found something she'd been searching for all along. The woman opened her eyes and looked at Nathan. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she said very quietly, she just wanted to be held by someone who wasn't afraid. On the woman's wrist, a tarnished silver bracelet caught the dim cabin light. Later, he would learn that bracelet had belonged to her mother. Later, he would learn that her mother had been buried 3 days ago. Later, he would learn that this woman had spent 10 minutes crying alone in the airplane bathroom before she saw Nathan struggling and recognized something familiar in his desperation. But right now, all Nathan knew was this: a stranger was holding his daughter. A stranger was humming a song that stirred something in his memory, something that felt like déjà vu and heartache combined. And for the first time in 8 months, Emma was at peace. The woman's name was Megan. She sat down in the empty seat beside Nathan, Emma already asleep against her collarbone, and spoke in a voice barely above a whisper. "Before you ask, no, I'm not some baby whisperer. I just remember what it feels like." What feels like?" Nathan asked. Megan's eyes drifted to the window, where the darkness outside was beginning to show the first pale hints of dawn. "Being so tired you can't see straight, feeling like everyone is watching you fail. Wondering if you're ever going to figure out how to do this." She paused. When she spoke again, her voice cracked on the edges. "I spent the first year of my daughter's life convinced I was the worst mother in the world. Turns out I was just the only one trying." Nathan glanced at the little girl still sleeping in the window seat across the aisle. Dark curly hair, peaceful face, the boneless relaxation of a child who felt completely safe. "Her father?" Nathan asked, then immediately wished he hadn't. "He left when Sophie was 6 months old. Said he wasn't ready to be a dad." Megan let out a small, humorless laugh. "Funny how they figure that out right when the hard part is supposed to get easier." The baby stirred in her arms. Megan shifted her hold automatically, the gesture so practiced it was almost unconscious. "My mom was the only one who helped me," Megan continued. "She moved in, took care of Sophie while I worked, held me together when I was falling apart." Her voice broke. "She died last week. Heart attack. No warning, no goodbye, just gone." Nathan felt something shift in his chest, a recognition that went beyond sympathy. He knew that kind of loss. He lived with it every single day. "I'm sorry," he said, and meant it in a way he hadn't meant anything in a long time. My wife died giving birth to Emma. She never got to hold her, not really, just once, for 37 seconds, and then he couldn't finish the sentence. He had never been able to finish that sentence. Megan turned to look at him, and for the first time, Nathan saw the full weight of exhaustion in her eyes. Not just the tiredness of a long flight, something deeper. The kind of exhaustion that comes from carrying grief alone for so long that you forget what it feels like to put it down. So we're both doing this by ourselves, she said. It wasn't a question. Yeah, Nathan said. I guess we are. Sophie woke up just as the pilot announced their descent into Seattle. She rubbed her eyes and looked around the cabin with the serious intensity of a 4-year-old taking inventory of her world. Then she saw Nathan. Then she saw Emma sleeping in her mother's arms. Her eyes went very wide. Mommy, there's a baby. I know, sweetheart. This is Emma, and this is her daddy, Nathan. Sophie studied Nathan for a long moment. Her gaze was unnervingly direct for such a small child. Why is he crying without tears, she asked. The words hit Nathan like a punch to the chest. He's not crying. Baby, Megan said gently. He's just tired, like us. Grandma said grown-ups cry on the inside. Sophie was still looking at Nathan. She said if you keep the tears inside too long, you'll drown. Nathan's throat tightened until speaking became impossible. Your grandma sounds very wise, he managed. She's in heaven now, Sophie announced. Mommy says she's watching us from the clouds. She pressed her face against the airplane window. Do you think she can see us right now? I think, Megan said softly, she can see everything. The plane touched down. The cabin erupted into chaos. People standing too soon, yanking bags from overhead bins, jostling for position. Megan handed Emma back to Nathan. Their fingers brushed in the transfer. Thank you, he said. I don't know how to... you didn't have to. I know. Megan was already gathering Sophie's things. But I wanted to. Sometimes that's enough. Sophie tugged at Nathan's sleeve. Are you coming to our house? I have toys. I can show the baby my toys. Nathan looked at Megan. I'm not ready, she said quietly. For whatever this is. I just buried my mother and I'm barely holding it together. I understand, Nathan said quickly. But Megan reached into her bag and pulled out a receipt, scribbling something on the back. I work at a cafe, Rosewood Cafe on Maple Street. Sophie and I are there most mornings. She pressed the paper into his hand. No pressure, no expectations. Just, if you ever need a place where no one judges. Nathan looked at the address. The handwriting was uneven, hurried, real. Mommy makes the best hot chocolate, Sophie added, with extra marshmallows. The line was finally moving. Megan picked up Sophie and stepped into the aisle, then turned back one last time. She's beautiful, Nathan. Emma. Her voice caught. And she's lucky to have you. Even if it doesn't feel like that right now. Then she was gone. Nathan stood there for a long moment. The piece of paper felt like it was burning a hole in his hand. The first 2 months were survival, nothing more. Nathan went back to work, back to the grinding routine of daycare drop-offs and late-night feedings, and the crushing loneliness of single parenthood. Emma still cried at night, still screamed for something Nathan didn't know how to provide. He would walk the floor with her for hours, humming the melody he had heard Megan sing. Sometimes it worked, most times it didn't. On the worst nights where he would call his mother-in-law at 2 a.m, and she would cry with him through the phone, both of them grieving the woman they had lost. The address stayed in his wallet. Rosewood Cafe, Maple Street. He wasn't ready. The 3rd month he started driving past the cafe, not going in, just driving past. Every Sunday morning, he would put Emma in her car seat and take the long route, the route that happened to pass Maple Street. That happened to offer a clear view of a small cafe with a green awning and flower boxes in the windows. Sometimes he would see Megan through the glass, working behind the counter. Sometimes he would see Sophie running between tables, her stuffed rabbit dragging on the floor. They looked happy. They looked complete. Nathan would sit in his parked car, his hands gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles went white. What would I even say? Hi, remember me? The mess from the airplane? He never went in. The 4th month, Emma learned to crawl. The 5th month, she took her first steps. By the 6th month, she was saying Dada clearly, reaching for Nathan every time he walked into a room. But something else was happening too. Every night, before Emma fell asleep, she would make a sound. Not crying, not fussing. A soft, tuneless humming that seemed to comfort her. It took Nathan weeks to realize what it was. The lullaby. The song Megan had sung on the plane. Emma remembered. That same week, Nathan found himself going through Lily's things. He had avoided her belongings for months, but something about Emma's humming had cracked open a door he'd kept firmly closed. In a box at the back of the closet, he found Lily's pregnancy journal. He sat on the floor of the nursery and began to read. Most entries were what he expected: doctor's appointments, cravings, excitement. But one entry, dated 2 years before Emma was born, made his hands go cold. Met the most wonderful woman in the park today. Her name is Helen. We talked for hours about life, about love, about the babies we hope to have. She taught me a lullaby that's been in her family for 4 generations. She has a daughter named Megan who's going through a hard time. I hope things get better for her. Nathan stopped breathing. Helen. Megan's mother was named Helen. He turned the page, saw Helen again today. She asked about Nathan. I told her how he looks at me like I'm the only person in the room. Helen smiled and said, "Hold on to that, dear." Men who look at their wives that way are rare. Nathan's vision blurred. He turned another page. Helen found me at the hospital today while Nathan was parking the car. She recognized me right away. She said something strange. "If you ever meet my daughter, tell her that her mother said to believe in fate." I asked what she meant. She just touched my belly and smiled. The journal fell from Nathan's hands. Helen, Megan's mother, had known Lily, had taught her the lullaby, had spoken about fate and someday. 2 women who were now both dead. 2 strangers on a plane who were now connected by threads they couldn't see. Nathan sat on the nursery floor until dawn, tears falling for the first time since Lily died. He had to go to that cafe. He had to know. The 7th month, Nathan finally got up the courage. He dressed carefully, shaved, practiced what he would say. He pushed open the door of the Rosewood Cafe. The bell chimed, and then he saw them. Megan was sitting at a table by the window, but she wasn't alone. A tall man sat across from her, leaning forward, saying something that made her laugh. Sophie was climbing into the man's lap, throwing her arms around his neck. Nathan didn't hear Sophie call him Uncle Danny. All he saw was Megan laughing with another man. All he felt was the ground falling away beneath his feet. She found someone. Of course she found someone. He turned around and walked out before anyone saw him. The 8th month, the night before Emma's first birthday. Nathan sat alone in his living room, watching the baby monitor, listening to his daughter breathe. Tomorrow she would be 1 year old. Tomorrow he would have survived an entire year without Lily. It didn't feel like survival. It felt like slowly dying while everyone told him how brave he was. Through the monitor, Emma began to hum in her sleep. That lullaby. Nathan closed his eyes, and in the darkness, he finally heard what Lily had been trying to tell him in those final moments. The words came to him clearly now, as if she were whispering in his ear. Find someone who loves her like you love me. For 8 months he had thought Lily was talking about Emma. Find someone to help raise her. But what if that wasn't it? What if her wasn't Emma at all? What if Lily was giving Nathan permission to love again and to let himself be loved? Nathan opened his eyes. The tears came then. Real tears. The kind Sophie said grown-ups keep inside until they drown. He let himself drown. And when morning came, he knew what he had to do. Emma's first birthday, Nathan woke before sunrise, dressed his daughter in a yellow dress covered in tiny daisies, and drove to Maple Street. He almost turned back 3 times. His hands were shaking. His heart was pounding. Every instinct screamed at him to go home, to stay safe. "She has someone else," the voice in his head insisted. "You're too late." But another voice, softer, sounding like Lily, whispered, "You'll never know unless you try." He parked in front of the Rosewood Cafe. Through the window, he could see a woman sitting alone at a small table by the window. Megan. She was staring at something in front of her. Her shoulders were shaking. She was crying. And on the table beside her was a small frame photo of an older woman with kind eyes. Helen. Nathan got out of the car, walked to the door, pushed it open. The bell chimed. A small voice rang out across the room. "Mommy, it's the airplane man! The airplane man with baby Emma!" Sophie was running toward them, her face lit up like Christmas morning. Megan spun around. Their eyes met, and time stopped. Suddenly, she was there, standing in front of him, tears wet on her cheeks. "You came," she whispered. "I waited every day." "I almost didn't," Nathan admitted. "About 100 times I almost didn't." "Then why did you?" Nathan looked down at Emma, who was reaching toward Megan with both arms. "Ma," Emma said clearly. Ma. Nathan's heart stopped. "Emma, no, that's not." But Megan was already crying harder. "Why didn't you come sooner?" she asked. 8 months. "I did come," Nathan said. "Once, a month ago. But I saw you with a man. He was holding Sophie. I thought—" Megan stared at him. Then she laughed, a wet, broken, beautiful sound. "That was my brother, Danny. He flew in from Texas to help me after Mom died." Nathan felt the world tilt and right itself. All those weeks of thinking he was too late. All that time wasted on fear. "I'm an idiot," he said. "Yes," Megan agreed. "You really are." But she was smiling. An old man appeared at Megan's elbow. White hair, kind eyes, a dish towel over his shoulder. "So," Walter said, studying Nathan, "you're him." "I'm sorry. Helen told me about you." Walter's voice was gruff. "She described you perfectly. A young man at the hospital," she said, looking at his pregnant wife like she hung the moon. "I don't understand," Nathan said. Walter pulled out a chair and sat down. "Your wife, Lily. Helen met her years ago, in a park. They became friends. Helen taught her the family lullaby, told her about Megan." Megan pressed her hand to her mouth. "Mom never told me." "She was waiting," Walter said. "She saw Nathan once, just a glimpse, in a hospital waiting room. Didn't know his name, but she saw how he looked at his wife, and she told me later, 'That's the kind of man my Megan deserves.'" Walter paused. "When Lily died, Helen saw the obituary. That's how she learned the baby's name was Emma. She wanted to reach out then, but she said, 'If I arrange it, it won't be real. They need to find each other on their own.'" He looked at Helen's photograph. "She ran out of time, but she never stopped believing." "There's something else," Walter said quietly. He reached into his apron pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. "Helen wrote this before she died. Made me promise to give it to you, both of you." Megan took the paper with trembling hands. Helen's handwriting filled the page. "My darling Megan, if you're reading this, then Walter has decided the time has come. That means you've met him, the man I saw at the hospital. I know I should have told you, but some things can't be forced. Some things have to happen in their own time. I taught his wife our lullaby. I prayed she would teach it to her baby. I prayed that somehow, someday, the song would find its way to you. Love doesn't end when we die, sweetheart. It just changes form. It becomes a melody hummed on an airplane, a stranger's kindness, a piece of paper kept in a wallet for 8 months. Be happy, my girl. You deserve it. All my love from the clouds. Mom Megan was sobbing openly now. Nathan was too. Sophie looked between them. See, I told you. Grandma said a man would come with a baby and you would cry, and then we would all be family. Later, they sat at Helen's table together. Nathan and Megan, Sophie and Emma, coffee and chocolate chip muffins. I found Lily's journal, Nathan said quietly. She wrote about meeting your mother, about the lullaby, about fate. Megan nodded, wiping her eyes. Mom always said some loves are written before they begin. They watched Sophie leading Emma to the corner of the cafe, where crayons waited. Grandma said butterflies are people who love us coming back to visit, Sophie announced. A yellow butterfly appeared at the window, impossible in March, pressing its wings against the glass. Emma pointed at it. Mama, not looking at Megan, looking at the butterfly, looking at the sky. Nathan felt Lily's presence then, warm and golden and absolutely real. He felt Helen too, a woman he'd never properly known but who had loved him anyway. Yeah, baby, he whispered. They're here. The butterfly flew away, up toward the clouds. Megan reached across the table and took Nathan's hand. I don't know how to do this, she admitted. Me too, Nathan said. But maybe we can figure it out together. From the corner, Sophie held up a piece of paper covered in colorful scribbles. Look, Emma and I drew our family. 4 stick figures, 2 big, 2 small, holding hands under a yellow sun. Nathan looked at the drawing, looked at Megan, looked at Helen's photo watching over them all. Yeah, he said, his voice thick. Family, a crying baby, a different plane, a different desperate mother with dark circles under her eyes. The woman beside her smiled. Can I help? Megan asked. The young mother hesitated. I know how it feels, Megan said gently. I've been exactly where you are. The woman handed over her baby. Megan began to hum, the lullaby that had traveled through 4 generations, the melody that had bridged 2 griefs, 2 families, 2 broken hearts. The baby stopped crying. 2 rows back, Nathan smiled at his wife, their sleeping daughter in his arms, Sophie drawing butterflies beside him. On Megan's left hand, 2 rings caught the light, a wedding band, and her mother's silver bracelet, resized to fit her finger. 6 months after the wedding, while cleaning out Helen's apartment, Megan found an envelope hidden in a drawer. On the front, in Helen's handwriting, for my daughter, open when you need to believe in miracles. Inside was a single piece of paper dated 10 years earlier. Megan, I had the strangest dream last night. I saw you on an airplane, holding a crying baby that wasn't yours. There was a man beside you, his eyes full of sadness and love. I don't know who he was, but I know he belongs to you. I'm writing this down because I want you to know. When you meet him, don't be afraid. Fate has been planning this for longer than you know. Trust the journey, sweetheart, even when it hurts. Love always, Mom Megan's hands trembled. The letter was dated 10 years ago, before the airplane, before Emma, before Nathan, before any of it. Nathan, she whispered, look at this. Nathan read the letter, read it again. How is this possible? Mom always said she could see things in her dreams. Megan's voice shook. I never believed her. She looked at the date one more time. 10 years. Her mother had seen this coming for 10 years, had written it down, had waited, had trusted. Outside the window, a yellow butterfly landed on the sill. Nathan pulled Megan close. I don't know how any of this works, he said, but I know one thing. What? Wherever Helen is, wherever Lily is, they're together. And they're probably laughing at how long it took us to figure this out. Megan laughed through her tears. The butterfly stayed for one more moment. Then it flew away, up toward the clouds, where two women who had loved them were surely watching, surely smiling, surely at last at peace. For Helen and Lily, for all the mothers who love us across time, across distance, across death itself, for everyone who found family in the most unexpected places. And for you reading this now, may you find your own unthinkable miracle.